You have questions, we have answers. This is Jane Muller.
And this is Ken Muller. Welcome to our show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane. Today, we are rejoined by David Rickenbach and Peter Casey Wall, both partners of North Star Title. Guys, welcome back to our show.
Welcome.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks,
It's
Jane.
good to be here.
Yeah, last show was very enlightening, and we learned a lot about a lot of importance of title insurance, and now we're going to dive into some more issues we didn't cover from last week, and thank you guys again for coming back. Please reintroduce your North Star Title Agency.
Sure. So, we're North Star Title. We have 3 offices throughout the state, based primarily in East Brunswick, and also an office in Shrewsbury and Livingston. And relatively new, but the line is we're new, but we're not. We got over 20 employees, over 300 years of aggregate experience, and we love what we do.
Yes,
we can see. Yeah,
I can see the passion.
You can see the passion. Yeah, the knowledge.
Yeah.
It really shines through. That's
What's
right.
the phone number?
Yeah.
Our phone number is 732-589-7250, or catch up with us on the web at www.northstartitle.com.
And we missed it last week, but I would say follow our socials.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
okay.
We,
Where's
got
your
some
socials on? Like Facebook?
funny videos
or-
coming on.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Definitely check us out. We got some great videos that are already posted and more to come.
That's great. All the good tips.
It's very hard to make title insurance entertaining. Like Dave was worried about when I asked you guys to come and talk about title insurance. He goes, Ken, are you sure you want to put everybody to sleep? I said, well, it depends. There'll be maybe 5-10% of the listeners out there that'll enjoy it, right?
So here's how you know. If you see my face on the video, it's going to be a snoozer.
And you see
But if you
Dave's
see any of our employees, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But it was a good mix.
Yeah.
I think it's super important for the the buyer and the seller to understand that, because being in the business 16 years myself, I witnessed again and again the problem. The problem is because at the beginning, we were wrong the first step. Okay, for example, if the buyer didn't buy the insurance or the buyer didn't order the survey, and later on the problem, or the lawyer, sometimes they don't want to hire a lawyer, sometimes they did, but the lawyer didn't read the exceptions. I just recently had a big deal, right, which is, I'm not mentioning the name here, and they had the title binder, because I never read title binder before, to be honest with you, because the title binder always go to the lawyer, doesn't go to the agent. Agent can't give legal advice anyway. We're not qualified. But this time, I got a title binder, which I closed the house with them 10 years ago. What happened was, in the binder have exception. The second lien is exception. So we're all shocked. Mm-hmm. We bought this house. We bought the title insurance. We used one of the well-known detailed lawyer. How that happened? And the lawyer said it's more than 10 years ago. He doesn't have the file. Oh my God! And the current lawyer have to follow up and everything else, right? And how that happened, because the title company, like David said last week, right? They didn't close all the liens. Maybe that time they must have agreement. Otherwise, who would want your buyer to purchase property with exception and not close the lien?
So you'd have to get their back title policy and then see if there's an indemnification.
They didn't.
Oh, they didn't.
Because exception.
The title insurance, the insurance company issued the policy with that lien as an exception.
The first time I read the title, I was stunned. As a real estate agent, if I saw that, I wouldn't close. Leave alone the lawyer. But at the end, we had to.
It was a monetary amount of how
it's huge. It's 100,000.
Oh.
So over a 300,000 townhouse. So at the end, we have to work with the second one. Took a long time. At the end, have to hold escrow, and we negotiate down to less, but 100,000 start with. And there was like delayed closing for so long, and there was a big mess. It's only because there was, the second lien wasn't paid off. At the end, there was discharged. But where were everybody the first round?
Right.
So it was discharged, but never recorded. So that's why it stayed. But that's still a big scare.
For things that we think would be a stumbling block to settlement, or they're outside the norm of what you would find, we have what we call an extra hazardous title risk sheet. And we'll populate that and make that the first page of our binder. And there's nothing on there. It's not complicated. It basically just says, this is not all of the commitment, but these are some things that we think require special attention, and we'll list them there. So that mortgage that ended up
They
on
were
somebody's
cash
exception would
purchase,
probably
yeah.
be on there.
They were cash purchase. That's why it didn't pick up by the mortgage company. If they
But
were,
it-
if they mortgage, the mortgage company would read that, wouldn't let that.
But it's
go.
odd. The prior lawyer from 10 years ago, whoever handled the file, didn't. I mean, that sticks out like a.
Well, anyway, that's a
But that's not-
off the show topic.
Yeah, these are
that's
fun
right.
stories of
Yeah,
real
that's
estate.
right.
We don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Whatever happened, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So let's also pick up. You mentioned surveys. We didn't cover surveys last week, and let's talk about why a survey for a single-family home is quite important in terms of the title company's perspective.
Sure.
You wanna take that one?
So it's important, Ken, because we focused on last week how you want to buy a property free and clear of all liens, and you're thinking financial liens. Now, a survey could identify any physical issues with the property. So you want to know what you're purchasing. That's important, right? What's the lot size, et cetera, and where everything that's built, whether on our lot or the adjoining lots, where that stands, because it's not uncommon to see situations where somebody builds a pool or puts a shed up, and they think they're putting up on their property, but it's actually on the adjoining owners or your property. And so the survey can help identify those kinds of situations and prevent an issue where you go to sell, or you at some point a neighbor knocks on your door and says, "Hey, I want to put up a fence, and I got to put it through your pool."
Yeah,
right. And
right.
that could be a problem.
Yeah, and those are what are called known as encroachments, right? Whether
Correct.
if your fence line encroaches upon, well, I guess, goes onto somebody else's property, or vice versa, your neighbor's fence goes onto your property, that's an
Right.
encroachment, or your shed is over your property line. Those are what you guys regard as encroachments, right?
We just had a case.
And then, I think
10 feet
you
into my
Well-
land, into my clients. And they
what
did
was it? What was the fence?
the fence.
Okay.
Because what happened was the buyer attorney didn't order the survey 2 days before closing. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
2 days
sure.
before the closing. So they ordered Thursday afternoon. There was a guy did that. So Friday they got a report. We're supposed to close Monday. They said not 6 inches, not 2 feet.
10 feet.
9.5. We all
Wow.
shocked. So on Monday, so obviously we can't close. So the seller have to knock on neighbor's house and to solve it. And then the seller went to township. Township said, no, we're not involved in that. But you have a permit, you proved the permit. Township said, we only issued a permit, the structure of the fence, not on your title issue.
Not where it
not
is,
on your land issue.
But they required a survey. Usually, the township, before you put in a fence, they require a survey. So then, that neighbor's surveyor was way off, and
Who knows?
Or
But
who knows? But for
at the end of the day, it was a 9.5 feet. At the end, took 2-3 weeks to handle, and then the buyer rate almost expired. They want us to pay the penalty. Thank God, at the end, done. So they have to go there, and then they couldn't get a contractor. I have to pulling my contractor's arm, say, please, please save me, save me. Go there to take down the fence. At the end, we had to take down the fence.
Wow.
So in order to close, and the neighbors have to do the fence later after closing. So that was how important it is.
Right.
Yeah.
The best reasons I can give for a buyer to get a survey, it's not compulsory, right? You don't have to get a survey to purchase, but the best reasons I can give are, first, you don't want any surprises. I have an example of, we had a purchase that was going down, and the people thought they were getting a lot that was 100 feet deep. But when they got the survey, they realized the lot's only 75 feet deep. The current owner had built a fence that goes 25 feet into an easement.
Yeah.
They don't own that. They don't own that land. The county owns that land. So, but they were misguided as to how big
Yeah.
their lot was
Yeah.
because of where the current owner built their fence. You don't want to have anything like that. And it's also the only way where you're going to find out if there are what are called gores, gaps, and overlaps between your property and your neighbor's properties. A gore and a gap is, like it sounds, an area of uncertain title. A gap is like parallel lines in between a property, and in between those parallel lines, nobody knows who owns that land. A gore is like a triangle where one of the directions is slightly off. So we've created this little triangle of uncertainty. And then an overlap means the descriptions are now crossing each other so that we have an uncertainty on land where both parties think they might own it. So a survey will help to discern those things. And then the other best reason is because in every policy, exception number one is anything we might find on a survey. And the only way to get rid of that exception is by having a survey and getting a survey endorsement to the policy.
Right.
That's very important.
And then also you run the risk of adverse possession in New Jersey. I don't know how that would look, but if somebody has their fence line encroaching on your property for more than 20 years and it's a significant, whether adverse possession, if they would be entitled to, that's more of a legal question, not for us to talk about. But I'm sure that could be an argument raised, if nobody's claimed it or challenged it for 20 years.
Right.
And
if not adverse possession, it's not a great way to start out a new relationship with a neighbor.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
right.
way we'll talk. Yeah.
If they think they own a piece of your property and you come in and knock their fence down and tell them they got to move their shed, if you have a survey beforehand, you could figure those things out.
You're right. It's just the best practice. Absolutely. Yeah. For a condominium or a townhouse that's attached, it may not be as critical if it's not a fee simple, if it's, a survey it's not as.
So condominiums surveys really don't mean anything because when you buy a condominium, you don't buy actually the building.
Yeah.
You get a volume of air inside.
that's
And you
right.
get a common interest of
A common
0.01,
interest in all of the amenities. Townhouses are a little bit different. So townhouses in a planned unit development, you own the land and you own the building, but you're subject to the rights of the people who own the party wall with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So there's party wall interests, and then you also have association fees and interests and rules. So a survey for a townhouse in a planned unit development, probably advisable. You want to make sure that the neighbor didn't extend their fence onto your property or anything like that. But again, not as critical as if you're buying a single family residence of any kind of independent lot size.
Yeah. Also, surveys can detect things like underground petroleum lines, gas lines, even if that might be something that could be missed, but the survey would show that, and then you at least alert the buyer to that.
One of the great aspects of a survey is all the easements and restrictions that we show in the commitment should be plotted on the survey to show where they run across your land. Because when you're looking at it as a document, there's not usually a map, and it's arcane to most people. I don't know where this thing runs, but a surveyor can take that information and put it on the drawing, so you have an idea. Where is this gas pipeline? Oh, it's just along the back. Okay, it's not going through the house.
And you've had situations where there's been gas pipelines that have
in the
been involved,
backyard.
and those are always issues.
You can't have a pool.
Right. So
I had one actually. The funny thing was not funny that time. I represent the seller. According to the survey, there was live gas line underneath the swimming pool.
Oh wow!
Everybody in the age at the end realized they proposed but never had it.
Wow!
So thank God for that. So we closed because when the survey showed up, I thought it's impossible. How can town give them permit? The pool had a permit. It's in ground pool. It's impossible. So at the end, took a lot of detective work and for the lawyer, for everyone, and then they realized actually, whatever that was they never did it. They just proposed it, but the surveyor put on the survey. Actually, there was none. Wow. So
and it wasn't coded. I guess it wasn't coded as proposed. It was just coded as
I done. That was like, but thank God the seller couldn't sleep. Because we almost the closing, they already moved out, But everybody did a great on that. I don't know how they did it, but they did. They said nope. There's definitely no. I went to township multiple times asking for that. Township said, Jane, there's no pipe. There's no pipe underneath. I said, I need in writing. So, but at the end, the lawyer got the top of it, and we closed. But
wow,
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
very good.
Hey, Ken, one
Yeah,
tip
sure, go ahead,
I think
Dave.
might be helpful
Sure.
because I know people are always interested in saving a buck. With the surveys, we think they're critical.
Yeah.
But it's worth checking if you're buying a property. What is it? 10 years with a prior owner's survey?
Oh, they can endorse the survey.
It varies by underwriter, but the rule of thumb is as long as the survey is certified to the current owner or the seller, and we can get the seller to sign an affidavit saying there are no changes to the land since the date of that survey,
Right.
we can accept it and use it.
Yeah, we can.
I always
Yeah, good to
recommend
know.
all my buyer to buy survey, buy title, insurance by survey, hire a lawyer. If you already bought a house,
Because you think
compare
about it,
with that.
you're making a $500, $600,
Right.
$1 million
Big
plus investment, and then you're nickel and diming about these
Right.
critical
Yeah,
things
agreed.
to ensure your property. It might be the largest thing that most people invest in is their home, right? It's just it's just the basics.
Peace of mind
Peace
is
of
most
mind.
important.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just, I'm with you, Jane. I would personally, on myself, I would get a new survey, but it just, I know
But
some
it's
people are
so-
looking
Yes,
at.
they
To
do.
save a little,
If
Yeah.
it's a newer purchase, like household within 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. Okay, welcome back. So, Dave and Peter, let's change the topic now to talk about fraud. Fraud is unfortunately prevalent in our society, and we're going to talk about different types of fraud, starting with wire fraud, which has been in the news recently. So let's talk about what you guys do to ensure prevent the wire fraud to the extent possible.
So look, Ken, I'm glad we're talking about this because, I would say going back 10 years, if you talk to a title agent, their biggest fear was, not paying off a mortgage or some sort of settlement related, title. I guess I call it a title issue, really.
Yeah.
But now, when title agents get together and talk about what's going on, the biggest fear is wire fraud, and it's something like $4 billion annually
Oh my God.
That's
with a
happening?
B.
Sure,
That-
and it's increasing.
Yes.
So it was $3 billion last year. It'll be $4 billion this year, and it's
Right.
projected to be $6 billion
So
not in the not too distant future.
So yeah, if anybody takes away anything from this, I would just say if you're ever sending a wire,
Just
call to confirm the instructions. Make sure you're
Right.
calling a verified party. You're Googling that number, and because it's just $4 billion.
And
Yeah.
if your agent asks you to use a digital verification service like Closing Lock or Certified, do it.
Okay.
Because it's not just for our benefit, it's for your benefit as well. We want to make sure that the money goes to the right place. So we're going to collect your wire information in the most secure way possible.
Yeah, we could really do a whole show just
We could do a whole show
talking
with-
about how
and it's-
how detailed these people are getting. I mean, they're getting highly organized, very smart. It's scary. Like the line I use, it's like imagine if these people tried to get in our business, they'd be good. Because they're
Yeah.
they're
I
so
even get
effective at
leads
what they
from,
do.
From LoopNet and sometimes they're fraudulent leads. So the person will write a lengthy email. I said, I tried to contact so-and-so about the property. I have a commercial listing at 123 Main Street, but your number wasn't there. So the guy writes a lengthy email. This was just yesterday saying, I apologize, use my WhatsApp number. And he tries to say, I'm interested in this investment opportunity. We could create millions of dollars. It's just like this lengthy email of garbage.
One of the
So-
things we used to use to weed out bad actors was bad grammar, bad spelling,
Yeah.
poor syntax,
Yeah, they're-
odd language. None of that matters anymore with the advance of publicly available artificial intelligence. You can feed your garbled, email into an AI and say, "Make this sound like normal English," and they'll within 10 seconds spit back an email that would fool most people. So we spend a significant amount of time training our employees on how to detect fraud. We have 30 pieces of security training that they have to go through every year on repeat. Things like strong passwords and social engineering and how to detect fraud. And then we use digital verification services as well to make sure that our transactions are as secure as possible.
Right, because
Very
you
seriously.
guys are handling a lot of money. Because
Sure.
a lot of times, not always, but oftentimes, the attorneys rely on the title company to do the settlement, which means that the funds will be coming in from the buyer and their mortgage, and they'll be going out to pay the seller, pay off the seller's mortgages, pay off whatever else is based on the settlement statement. So you guys are handling, I don't know how, but huge volumes of dollars.
Yeah.
So you got to have a secure system and
Absolutely.
and really monitor it. So it's critical.
Something important I want to bring up is that we can only do so much. And we can generally protect the bank's money and the seller's money very well because we're involved with the movement of that. Where we sometimes can't help, and this is a great platform to get the word out, is protecting the buyers. Because what will happen a lot of times is at some point somebody's email gets compromised and the buyers receive an email saying, "Hi, we're the title company. Send us your money now so that we can hold it for closing." And then they'll show up at closing and we'll be like, "Where's your wire?" "Oh, we sent it 2 weeks ago."
Yeah, that's a sad real life story.
And it happens a lot.
That's why you always say before, even on your emails, I believe you say before sending any wire, please call. You can't emphasize that enough. You try to train the attorneys, the realtors, and you just the more that gets out, the word gets out there, the better, because it's just sadly that happened.
Don't trust an email, and don't call back
the number
the party that's
number.
in the email.
Right.
You need to do something that's published or something that you know is the right number. Or
or call your attorney and let your
call your attorney. Or if all else fails, get in the car and drive to the office, and make sure you're speaking to a human being and not an AI bot.
I can't overemphasize
$4 billion.
anymore.
That's
Wow,
incredible.
I just can't don't ever worry, am I being annoying by calling somebody, driving to the office? No, because it's too...
Protect yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that person that showed up in that case, unfortunately, they probably had a heart failure because they're like, "Oh my God."
You know, a lot of time, Ken, you just have to try to protect yourself. I mean, by thinking, one day I got a phone call from unknown number, said, "Oh, did you do this amount on your credit card wherever?" I said, "No." And they asked me some question. I said, "I can't answer that. How do I know who you are?" So they said, "Well, we're from whatever the bank." I said, "I don't care." I said, "I hang up." So I call up the bank. Truly, there was the bank.
But
the bank saw something really, happening. They thought, "My God, this must be fraud." So they called me. I wouldn't answer. I said, "No, that's not me, but I'm not talking to you." So I took my card out. I called on the card number, and then that was true, was them. But can you imagine if someone, tried to pretend, I would give them a lot of personal information. So be careful, especially with the title. If anyone wants you to send, don't listen. You only listen to one person, your attorney.
Right.
Speak to your attorney, because your attorney tell you to send, and then like Dave said, right? Peter said, you call the company to make sure it's correct.
I'd rather be annoying
Somebody
than
call you,
don't be
don't
nice.
answer.
Be annoying and make 100, verify 2-3 times, even call that number. If the attorney says, yeah, it's okay to send it, still call the title company and just run
You
them verbally.
call them. The key is not talk to you call them to make sure it's them, unless you can see the number is them. So that's the thing. Anybody can get in your email and pretending to somebody. That's where the problem is.
Or they can hack the emails that go out from the title company. And they can change the digits and make it look genuine, like
not
it's coming.
Ours.
Not ours.
We don't get
right.
we don't get hacked. We have a lot of here, but spoofing.
But
spoofing we can't protect against.
What is spoof?
So I'll give you so if an email is hacked, that means somebody has breached your system and they're actually sending it out from your servers.
Okay.
If an email is spoofed, there's ways of massaging an email that comes from a free service like Gmail or Hotmail by changing the settings to make it look like it's coming from somewhere else. A common way of spoofing is they somehow intercept an email from a legitimate party and then make their signature look like that. They copy the person's name, but the email address will be like closingagent01@gmail.com.
Right. So, it's like a...
Or a very sophisticated spoof would be if your company had an M in it. They would go register a domain where the M is replaced by an R and an
N.
R and an N next to each other instead of the letter M, because it looks the same if you're being very quick.
Yes.
So that's another way of spoofing where they can be very sophisticated and spoof you that way. At this point in the game, any title agent worth their salt is spending tens of thousands of dollars a year on email security. And I know that is the case for most of my colleagues.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. And it's gotten so sophisticated now. We had a case of a client's friend, this was back 15 years ago, who thought he was buying a used car, a Mercedes in Illinois. So they wired the money. It looked like the VIN number. The photos were there. Drove out there, and then there was nothing there. And they wired $40,000. Remember that?
Terrible.
That case from that was back a long time ago. But so now the technology with all the advances in computers, they can really trick you. So you can't say enough about being diligent in watching out for that. So let's also now talk about another type of fraud, which is impersonation fraud or deed fraud, and how and if your policies cover that, or does the buyer need to get additional insurance for that type of fraud?
So we in our due diligence are cognizant of which properties are targets for seller impersonation fraud. It's usually non-owner occupied properties. If it's vacant land or just a vacant property, it's a completed structure, but there's nobody living in it. There's a good likelihood that that property will be targeted at some point by somebody pretending to be the owner. So we get alerts for non-owner occupied property from some of our underwriters. They've got a database, and we also will get information from the tax assessor if there's a vacant property registration. We'll take that into account, and by default, we also use digital verification services, not just for collecting wire instructions, but for verifying people's identity. So you'll have to take a picture of your driver's license and a picture of your face and answer some questions that only you would know. It's something called KBA, or knowledge-based authentication, where they have an AI that knows what questions to ask you that only you would know the answers to, like which one of these 4 addresses is someplace you lived in the last 20 years. Something like that. So,
what's your husband's favorite dish? I think
I don't even know.
No.
But I don't even know what I would say. Pasta, maybe. I'd probably say spaghetti.
If AI gets to the point where they know
meatloaf, Ken, meatloaf.
Yeah. What would you say? Would your wife know? Would your girlfriend or wife know the answer to those questions?
No, but it's typically, do you ever live at this address?
Yeah, typically,
I'm
they go back
joking.
20 years and they say like what address, like that I mentioned where I lived, previously. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Which of these addresses did you not live at? And they give the three or the 4 you lived at and stuff like that. Or yeah. Well, that's great. So we have about 2 minutes left. Let's talk about what you guys do at the very end of right prior to the closing, the rundown, and why that's important, and then we can wrap it up.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Ken. So obviously we talked about how we do the searches to get an idea of what's on record and what needs to be taken care of to have it. So we get the insured free, title free and clear of all liens, but that is done at a certain date, and closing doesn't happen that day, right? So closing, oftentimes, I think the average, you guys probably know better than me, is about 45 days
45 to
from
60
contract
days.
signing. So what you need to do is something could pop up in those 45 days. So you do something called a rundown, which would basically just continue those searches and look see by the time the initial searches were done, up until closing, was anything new recorded?
Any new
record.
judgments or any liens?
That does. I'm sure you've probably had some closings where you get some prizes,
you
right?
get some prizes,
The
right.
Rundown picked up a judgment. We got to pay it now.
And when we're talking about dates, the Superior Court is usually pretty close to the current date, and the tax assessment update that we get is current. But some of the counties tend to be a little bit behind in their recording. Most of them are pretty tight, but some of them are a little behind. So the policy actually covers what's called the gap period. And that's another reason why what we talked about last week, the notice of settlement.
Right.
We file the notice of settlement so that if anything gets recorded in the gap, we can tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, we filed a notice of settlement. Your lien is not superior to what we show.
Very good.
So that's very important. The buyer attorney should order title as soon as under contract, which I always ask.
And also file the notice of settlement so your gap
But
period
that's their
gets started
expertise.
right away.
Right.
Yeah.
And the notice of settlement lasts for 60 days. And if you file it again within 60 days, it extends to 120.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're out of time. And once again, we want to thank you very much for taking time this Sunday morning to be our guests and in sharing us all this valuable information. And please give your contact information one last time.
Sure thing. Find us on the web at www.northstartitle.com or give us a call at our main line, 732-589-7250.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you both.